Podcast with Tek and Prem.
We just got to keep moving forward. And the new guys that have come in have bought right into it. You know, there's kind of an edge to everybody. They want to finish it.
It's the Vet Alumni Podcast. I'm Tek, he's Prem, and history is happening right in front of our eyes. You heard Topper just there talking about, we just got to move forward. Everybody's buying in, and we got to finish it.
Well, that's what they tried to do the last two seasons, and they fell short. So there's not going to be much excitement in terms of, accomplishing much yet, because there shouldn't be.
Right.
But it's exciting to watch, and it's exciting to view and be a part of. And this squad is truly what we expected on paper. They actually are.
Yeah, I mean, it's their best start to a season in franchise history, 37-14 as we get ready for this weekend series in Colorado. Another sweep, their seventh of the season. This time it's the Texas Rangers. Just for perspective for everybody, they had 7 sweeps in all of last season.
Amazing.
So 6 games up on the Braves. They haven't had a 29-6 record through 35 games in 132 years.
Remarkable.
1892 was the year. They're on pace for 118 wins. I doubt they get there, but being on pace for that is historic.
It truly is. I mean, really only a handful of teams over the last, quarter century have started this good.
Yeah, look, I don't want to keep being cliche with the word historic, but what we're seeing is historic numbers all around. 22-8 at home, the best record through 30 home games in the history of Citizens Bank Park. That's
remarkable. And this franchise has existed since 1883. The National League has only existed since 1876, and in 141 years, the Phillies have never started 37-14.
Unbelievable.
Even all these great teams they had, and they had some great teams in 1950. They went to the World Series. That team didn't start that good. We know what the 80 team was. We know about the era we had with Utley and Howard and those guys. None of these guys have come close to that. 93 even was a great team. They started hot, but they didn't start this hot.
No, not quite this hot.
They're close, though. They were close. They were close.
Close. Ranger Suarez, he's having a Cy Young year. He's the best starting pitcher in Major League Baseball.
He truly is. He pitches. He He doesn't throw. He pitches.
And everyone in the rotation is keeping them in games. I mean, even, look at Wheeler, right? We consider Wheeler at his best a top 3, top 4 pitcher in all of baseball. Yeah. And he has had a string of, for his standard, average starts below the Wheeler that you're supposed to see. And he's not giving up runs. He's going 6-7 innings every game.
He is.
I mean,
he finds a way. See, the great pitchers, they just find a way. There's something about the collectiveness on the mound when you have a couple guys on base and there's one out. Some pitchers, and we've seen it plenty in our history, Zach Eflin, some pitchers will crumble in those scenarios.
Right.
But guys like Ranger and Wheeler, and even Nola has been very impressive. I mean, the home run numbers are way down for him. These guys just have a different approach when they have guys on base.
Even when he gives up 1 or 2 home runs. This team that we're seeing is managing to overcome that.
It doesn't matter. Look, unless this team is
down...
In
ways they didn't the last couple of years.
Well, you're right. And a lot of their history.
Yeah.
The truth is, unless this team is down by 5 runs and there's only maybe 3 more at-bats left, even then they're still in the game. But, you got to really have the Phils put away. Yeah. You got to be up by 6 runs.
Yeah, you got to be up. You got to be
up comfortable.
Prem, I'm watching a team I don't recognize, or I barely recognize.
It's foreign to you.
They're hitting with men on base. They're scoring runs without relying purely on home runs. And, oh, by the way, the bullpen is performing at a high level.
You're not kidding, man. These guys,
especially Matt Strom.
The irony is, Matt Strom's amazing. The irony is, that's the weakest part of the team is the back end. But it's not weak. It's not weak relative to the league.
That's right.
It's weak relative to the superiority that they've displayed. And, we've talked about it last week. We talked about it as far as what they should target at the deadline. I think the consensus is a right-handed arm for the pen.
Everybody I talk to is it's all about adding a dependable arm because, look, in a high-leverage situation, I like Soto, but I don't love Soto. I don't fully trust Soto.
No, he makes me nervous.
Yes,
man.
I don't trust Dominguez. I don't trust Kerkering because I've seen that when he's put in a high leverage moment, the moment is too big for him.
It has been, and that goes back to what I was just saying about how Ranger and Wheeler and Nola kind of have this different gear when there's guys on base, and they can pitch around and pitch out of it. Kerkering and Dominguez, they lack that.
Right.
And Dominguez didn't always lack that.
Right. Right now, you got three guys that I fully trust, and it's Strom, it's Alvarado, who, by the way, makes me nervous sometimes too.
He's a little lidgy. He's a little lidgy, but he gets out of it.
He gets out of it.
And Hoffman, I know your Hoffman's
He'll
your
put
third.
two men. Yeah, definitely Hoffman. But Alvarado put two men on with no outs, and then get out of it,
and then go 3-1 to the next batter, but still get him out.
It's really something.
Very Lidge-like. Well, you remember that year when Lidge went perfect that year? There was just something different about it. They would get lucky sometimes. Bases would be loaded in the ninth, and Lidge would just find a way to get the final strikeout or a ground out or a key double play. The key double plays they've gotten have won certain games for them.
Not to make a football analogy, but in 17, when the Eagles went all the way and won the whole thing, everything from penalties to certain times of possession where they would get the ball at a certain spot, everything seemed to go their way all year.
Sure did.
Big time penalties. It was like, oh, that was a terrible, but wait. Pass interference. Oh, first down.
Yeah.
It would be like all year that kind of stuff was going on, and I'm seeing.
I mean, you had a guy throw a touchdown on a torn knee.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
To win the game.
I'm seeing these similar kind of vibes with the Phillies where
Completely agree.
things will just go their way. Like in this Rangers series, it was the Wednesday night game, the second game. It's like the Phillies almost early, and look, like you said, I mean, you got to really pummel the Phillies.
They
for them to be
trailed in
out
all
of it.
those games, 1-0.
They were trailing in this game. I think it was 2-0.
It was 2-0 in the one game.
Yes, in this game that I'm talking about, and like the Rangers errored their way to giving the Phillies a huge, where the Phillies like beat the crap out of them.
It's like a magical thing, you know.
It's like, but the Rangers just allowed it. It was like watching these things, and this wasn't the first game, by the way, where a team just errored their way out of the lead and out of a game.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Against this Phillies
team.
You're
not wrong. But they just keep hitting. And I think what happens is mentally, the opponent knows the Phillies are going to keep hitting. And I think that plays on the minds when they're in the field that we can't make a mistake. And like anything, when you're tiptoeing and walking on ice and trying to be perfect is when you're not.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't matter what you're doing. I think that psychologically they are psyching out professional clubs.
It must be that. Because you got these unexpected guys that are leading you to victories. Like Cody Clemens, who's been great. I thought he should have made the opening day roster. If you go back to our Phillies preview show, that sentiment was right there. Cody Clemens should have been on the opening day roster. I thought he was that good last year. And really, to be honest, if we're being completely honest, go back and watch through spring training. He was the only guy hitting.
He was
consistently in spring training. Everybody went ice
He's here to stay now.
And he was hitting.
He's not going down again.
I just can't see when Trey Turner. Now that Trey Turner's out and Clemens and Sosa have really got an opportunity to shine, Trey Turner will be back soon, and I can't imagine Clemens going back down, especially when you got like guys like Whit Merrifield, he's a useless guy. Whit Merrifield's a useless guy.
Well, you know, we'll ask John Stolnis and what he thinks about that.
Yep, we'll go around the bases with John.
We sure will.
Phil's reporter for the Good Phight, and he's got tremendous insight.
He really does.
And
really does.
Obviously, we're all excited about what we're seeing. My skepticism is holding me back slightly. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I know. You know, and that's natural, I think, because like I said a second ago,
excited
it's only
about
May.
What's going on.
It's only May. You
yes,
know, and I'll tell you,
I look at their schedule in June, and I'm like, oh, I got some tough sledding in June, and then
not really though. It's the first 10 games in July. You go.
I was going to get to July. I feel like they have a couple little stretches in June. They have three teams that are. other than the Braves.
Well, you
they have
start
a couple
you start
first
with,
place teams.
You start with 2 home series. I mean, you got St. Louis at home, average club.
I'm not worried about that.
Then you do have Reese and the Brewers coming in.
That's
But
a
to
first
me,
place squad.
That's still a 2 out of 3. But then you got a split with the Mets in the London series.
Yeah.
You come home. It gets a little tougher. You're right. Then you got to go to Boston. You
Yeah,
gotta go to Baltimore.
Boston and Baltimore. That's a tough stretch.
Then you got San Diego, who's rejuvenated with Arias at the top of the lineup.
I'm telling you, I looked at the schedule and I thought, June isn't so sweet.
But the real test is going to be right before the All-Star break. It's going to tell us a lot. You got 3 at Wrigley.
Yep.
Then you got 3 in Atlanta. Then you come home for 3 against the Dodgers.
By the way, I think
10-game stretch.
And I'm not just basing this just off what I saw with the Braves series. I think the Cubs are slightly overrated. I think there's a good chance they could be a 500 team.
They are.
By the first week of June.
The pitching is phenomenal.
Yeah,
it's been
they
phenomenal.
got good pitching.
That's going to keep them in a lot of games.
They go dry on the hitting.
They do. They're young. They remind me of the Phils a couple years back a little bit. Where the Phils overachieved a little, like 2021, something like that. The Cubs have a lot of really good young players, like Nico Horner. These guys are good,
right.
But I think you're kind of right. I think they're going to stumble a little bit.
I see it. I see it happening. And look, the Braves are a really good team, right?
They are.
So,
they are.
I didn't expect the Cubs to win that series.
But God, they have guys that had career years last year, the Braves.
Right.
Multiple, and they're not going to have career years back to back.
The skeptic in me, right, sees the Phillies win every day. And I'm expecting I don't even have to look at the Braves. I know that Braves won. It's like the Braves are going to win every time we win. That's the way I feel.
They lost 4 in a row at one point last week.
And that's what cost them. That's what brings them down to being down 6 games.
Big time. And that kind of lead for the Phils, I don't think they relinquished the division at this point. I think it might get a little tighter at one point. But when I look at the schedule,
see it tightening up.
I don't think it's going to tighten up as much as you might think. Here's the
maybe
Phils.
Cut it in half. I see maybe at some point being 2.5, 3 games up.
Well, the Phils' next 6 games, you got 3 in Colorado, 3 in San Francisco. To me, that's 5-1, right? So, because they're going to drop one of those games.
I'll take 4 and 2.
I would too, because you're talking about traditionally, you're talking about a West Coast road trip for the Phils. 4 and 2 is what you hope they could do.
Yeah.
Now, in that same stretch, though, Tech, it's key about what the Braves are going to be doing. And the Braves coming up, you're coming off a Chicago series, but you got to go to Pittsburgh against like an upstart Pirates team. But then it gets a little easier. You got 4 at home against Washington, 3 at home against Oakland. So there is a chance if the Phils don't go 5-1, for example, over the next 6, that the Braves could end up 4 games out and not 6 games out. But I do think that the Phils keep winning. This is just something different that we've really never experienced.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, listen, I'm on board. I'm riding through this.
But you're being careful. You're being careful.
I'm being careful. I there's a part of me like, yes, I believe it. I believe what I'm seeing because I'm seeing it. That's the difference. Sometimes
your eyes are seeing
I'm witnessing it, so I know it's real. But
it's probably harder for you to put the negative early game tweets out now.
I make sure that I don't. When they go down 2-0, I mean, there's still some things.
You wait a little bit to see now.
Strike out Schwarber. I know when the bases are loaded with 2 outs, he's going to strike out, especially if it's to end the game.
In his defense yesterday, he hit a shot that was a great play at second base.
I expected him to ground into a double play, and it wasn't until Bohm got up, and then that double play happened.
Yeah. And the Rangers also wasted a bases loaded opportunity in the same game.
Yeah, right.
But I hear you. There's certain quirks that you just know are kind of like static quirks.
Well, it's just a decade plus of seeing trends from this Phillies team that never go away. You know what I mean? Like I fully expected after they score 11 runs on a Wednesday night that the Thursday business person special is going to be a shutout. I don't care who's on the mound, but I just expect no offense the next day after 11 runs the night before.
It's kind of been the MO, but they just put 5 more on the board with their best RBI guy going hitless.
It's just proving that this year's an anomaly. It's not what they've done for the past decade. It's not that. And look, I just have to concede that
you tip your cap and you just watch and enjoy.
That's at this point they're must-see TV. I admit that in past years that I'd monitor the game for the first couple innings and then I'd turn it on and it would kind of become background until there's a crucial situation. And that has not been the case. It has been like playoff game.
I know, man.
Every night is like playoff atmosphere, and you get that vibe. This is Bank Park. And it's just kind of the way it's been.
You're going to get that vibe at Coors Field tonight, Tech, because I'll tell you, this poor guy, Ty Blatch, the Colorado Rockies starter, brings in his 5.14 ERA.
Hey, in years past, Phillies don't hit guys with those high ERAs.
I hear you. This is probably one of those scenarios where they do. You can fully expect that the Phils go out there and handle business against the Colorado Rockies, who will just be a bit overmatched. The thing is, these guys haven't really seen this guy much. Merrifield has seen him actually 7 times, has a 286. JT, though, with a 400 average against him. Schwarber with a bomb off of him. Marsh with a bomb off of him. Harper with a bomb.
Oh, wow.
Off of this guy.
Here we
Coors
go.
Field, thin air. Vibes are high. They're on that plane ride last night, probably feeling excited, happy, jovial. Now you get to go to Coors Field to spend your weekend in Denver and against a team that really is undermatched.
When Bohm and Stott are coming off a horrendous game where they still won, that's actually a good omen for this weekend, because they're going to come out and they're going to look good.
Now, conversely, Sanchez has mostly owned the Rockies.
Wow.
Only one guy has a good mark against him, and that would be Tovar, their shortstop. Trejo is 1 for 4. Their catcher Stallings is 1 for 4. McMahon, their big-time hitter, is 1 for 5. Doyle is 1 for 3. I just like Doyle. He's just like saying Doyle's a baseball player.
Yeah.
Diaz, their big-time catcher, their all-star catcher, 0 for 5 against Sanchez. This sounds like a 9-2 victory.
Yeah. Look, Sanchez, he gives up.
He's been good, man.
He gives up a few runs.
He's been
but
good, though.
He keeps you. That's the thing about him
settles in.
and Walker and Turnbull. These guys have kept you in the game.
And Walker, I always expect the Walker start to be a loss for some reason, but
yeah,
it's not.
Me too, but it's
not.
not.
Though. He just
it's
wins.
He's kind of giving you prime Walker games.
Yeah,
even when he gives up runs.
It's gonna be an interesting summer when the schedule does get a little tougher. You still got to play the Mariners. You got the Yankees coming to Philly.
Yeah.
You got to go to Baltimore. I'll be taking Dad on Father's Day.
It's a good one.
Camden Yards. But you got some good clubs on the team, on the roster. You have to travel to L.A. yet. You have to do a lot yet. You got to go back to Atlanta still.
It's going to be interesting.
It really is.
It's going to be interesting. Let's pivot a little bit, talk a little birds. Devontae Parker retired. You know what it is?
Ugh.
He saw them sign Paris Campbell and draft 2 receivers, and he thought to himself, damn, I'm not a lock to make this team.
I don't want to compete. Yeah.
I'm too old to compete against a 6th-round pick for a roster spot.
That's exactly right.
So, they go and they sign John Ross, who, listen, the rookie little mini camp thing, it meant nothing, but he looked good in it, and they went and they're going cheap. This team has $30 million under the cap, or 28, or something like that.
Yeah, Howie's going to make some kind of move for a veteran, I think.
Maybe. I mean, look, maybe they like John Ross. He was a first-round bust. He's only 28 years old, but he retired last year, and he's making this comeback. And he will have to compete.
It was Bengals and then Giants for him, right, Ross?
Bengals, Giants, and last year he was with the Chiefs, and he retired with the Chiefs
briefly.
In preseason.
Okay.
He retired.
Yeah.
So, look, I don't know what's going to happen with the receiver spot, but John Ross, it's just I don't know that he's really, if that's anything.
This is probably going to catch some of our listeners off guard. I think that Anais Smith has a perfect shot to make this club at that spot.
I view him as a slot guy, as a return man.
Yeah.
Him
and DeJean, I mean, it's 1A, 1B with return abilities.
Yeah, and it's like, well, what happens with Covey? I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I think Covey was a cool story, but, you need playmakers on the field. Covey's a good punt returner. These guys are playmakers. There's a big difference.
And they changed the rules that's supposed to favor the returner this year, so...
A little more space?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe Covey is... I don't know. And
The jury is out.
OTA's officially started. Everyone looks good. Meanwhile, they're in shorts and sneakers. Cooper DeJean's playing both outside and nickel. And apparently they're not just going with a 3-4 base. There will be a lot of different looks in defensive fronts.
Yeah.
And that came from John McMullen, who's talked to Vic Fangio after the media availability after the first OTA.
Right.
So
legitimate source. John
yeah,
McMullen, vet alumnus.
Yeah, and it kind of is, I don't know if comforting is a word, but it's better to know that because I look at that 3-4 and I just see the possibilities of who starts at the line and it's 4 linebackers on the field.
I just think of getting gashed in the run. When I hear 3-4, I think of big holes up front is what I think of.
And I'm not thrilled with it.
Nah, it's really going to come down to Jordan Davis, man. It truly is.
And he looks great.
He slimmed down a little bit.
Hey, he lost a ton of weight. He looks like he's in great shape.
That's good and bad for a guy at that position.
Yeah, but look, he's taken it seriously this year, I think. And they got new defensive coaches. Fangio probably has something to do with it. And who's the defensive line guy? The massive guy. Clint Hurt.
I like him.
Huge, massive guy.
That's what you want.
And he probably had a lot to do. He probably said, listen, man, you got to get in shape.
Yeah,
because you can't. You're a professional.
As he bites into a Big Mac.
Exactly. We obviously have a long way to go. We'll talk Phils and Birds when we get to VetLine with our boy Jason Martinez from Fox 29.
Yes, we will.
But first, brought to you by the Fairless Hills Academy of Music, it's time for VetPhact.
This is a VetPhact.
Well, Tek, May 24th, 1980, the Houston Astros will come to town in what turned out to be a preview of that year's NLCS.
Yes, it was.
We know what the Phils did in 1980, a magical year. Well, on this day, they gave you a little taste of what was to come as they knocked off the Astros in a tight affair, 5-4. They almost blew it. The Astros scored 2 in the top of the 8th. You know that place was rather nervous.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter because this was a full team win for the Phils. 5 different Phils drove in runs. Boa, Trio, Schmidt, Boone, Lazinski. I mean, that's a list of the primary guys on that team.
Yes, it was.
4 of them drove in those runs with 2 outs. And one thing I always say, Tek, is 2-out RBIs is what wins World Series.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. And that's what this team did. They were known as the Cardiac Kids for a reason on a night when Pete Rose went hitless. It didn't matter because Bacon McBride filled the role with a triple. Usually, you had Pete Rose legging out those triples.
Right.
Schmitty even hit a triple.
Schmitty hit a triple.
It's fitting because Pache hit a triple yesterday.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes.
You know, the Phils just were a complete team that year. Even though Dan Larson, the starter, only went 5 1/3, Tug McGraw notched the save. The Phils would get their 19th win, but get this, Tek, the Astros at this point already had 21 wins.
Oh.
But it wouldn't matter. We know how that year ended.
Yes.
World Series champions, first time in franchise history. Only 28,539 fans packed the vet for this one.
Pretty low number.
Definitely a low number. Phils win 5-4, May 24th, 1980.
Yeah, you know what time it is.
We're talking about the Fightins here. The Fightins!
The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
It's time to go around the bases on the Vet Alumni Podcast.
Oh my God, deep to right field, way up there, and way out of here!
Joined on the vet line by John Stolnis. You, of course, know him from Hittin' Season, WHYY, and Eagles writer for Bleeding Green Tech.
Yeah.
John, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to talk to you.
Same, likewise. So the Phils have been on a record-setting pace. We haven't seen a start like this in the history
ever
of the franchise. It really is remarkable. What do you say to the folks that say that's only schedule related?
Yeah, this has to stop with that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
would you look at the run differential? I mean, I think Jeff Passan of ESPN put it best in a tweet. He says, I don't really want to hear about run differential when you're emasculating teams the way the Phillies have been. And coming in to the series, everybody's saying, well, the Rangers are going to be their first true test. This is finally going to be a test of the defending champions coming. I mean, it was like, it wasn't 5-2, 11 to whatever it was, and then 5-2 again. It's just, they haven't just been winning games; they've been dominating teams on a night in, night out basis. And I don't care who you've played. I don't care what the schedule is. When you have the record this team has and the way they've been beating teams, they're just playing phenomenal baseball. It is for real, and anybody who doesn't see that doesn't want to see it, and that's fine.
Exactly. It's just remarkable what's happening now. And I said the same thing yesterday. You can't apply a football mentality as far as who you play, because it's easier in football, only 16 games. In baseball, bad teams beat good teams every day. The Nationals went to L.A. and took 2 or 3, including a shutout. These things happen. So, moving on as far as the role players go, and that's been a big piece of this. Everybody's stepping up on any given night. For me, Sosa's been the most impressive role player. Who would you say the most impressive, unexpected guy would be?
Yeah, I think it's Edmundo Sosa. Cody Clemens certainly has come up, and he has gotten some pretty huge hits coming off the bench and as a call up, and they'll have an interesting decision to make when Trey Turner's ready to rejoin the team. But the fact that 3 weeks ago, when Trey Turner hurt his hamstring, the collective thought among the fan base was, oh, no. He's your $300 million shortstop. This is a guy you really can't lose. And he was playing it at MVP level, you think you're going to stumble. You think you're going to take a small step back at the position when you lose your stud shortstop. And Edmundo Sosa has come in, and he has channeled Trey Turner. How do you know things are going well? Edmundo Sosa has basically cloned himself into Trey Turner during the 3 weeks that he has been out. So, it's been remarkable what he's done, and it's great to see Sosa getting some attention, because in 2022 he came to the Phillies and was such a valuable part of that late season run, and then last year really struggled. Really had some tough times. He did not hit well, struggled in the field a little bit. He just seems much more comfortable now, and has been highly productive at the shortstop position for the Phillies without Trey Turner in there. He has undoubtedly been the biggest bench guy this year. Yeah,
they have a plethora of riches, and a lot of these guys can play multiple positions, which as a manager you gotta love. I know Rob loves that. Staying on Trey Turner, what's the latest you've heard on a timetable for him?
Yeah, he's taken batting practice. I think I read that Rob Thompson thinks he's about 85 to 90% back.
Nice.
They are not going to rush him until he's 100% back, but I think he's still probably a couple of weeks ahead of schedule. The sense that I get from what they're saying, and I'm kind of relating this back to how they talked about Bryce Harper last year, I got the sense very early on with Harper, the way they were talking about him and the things that he was doing, was that he was going to come back much, much sooner than expected. Getting the same kind of vibe with how they're talking about Trey Turner and the things that they're having him do. I think he will probably go out for a rehab assignment next week, and it would not at all surprise me that if not this weekend, but next weekend, Trey Turner is in the starting lineup. That would not surprise me at all.
Going to be interesting. Friday night, I think, at home, too, with the City Connect, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good date to target.
JT, he's been on fire since he's been in the 2-hole. You mentioned Sosa and Cody Clemens. Trey Turner, you just said he'll be back possibly next weekend. You hinted at an interesting decision that could happen. If it's your decision to make, what do you do?
Buy Whit Merrifield. Seriously, I can't. I initially said earlier this week in a podcast that I would probably let Christian Pache go because I felt like he was redundant with what you have with Johan Rojas.
Wow.
But Christian Pache is hitting the ball so hard right now.
He really is, man.
He gives you plus defense out there in the outfield. And right now, Whit Merrifield, the only thing Whit Merrifield does is hit right-handed and play multiple positions at a mediocre level.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything special for you. And
I agree.
I think that with Cody Clemens, you have a guy who can play in the infield, and Pache, you have a guy who can play in the outfield. I don't think you need Whit Merrifield at this point.
Agreed,
I don't think the Phillies, this is not the old Phillies. This is not, Bill Giles Phillies when, we paid him $8 million, so we got to keep him.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the way this team operates. I think that they're going to put the best team on the field, the team that has the best chance to win on the field. And right now, I think having Christian Pache on your bench over Whit Merrifield, Christian Pache and Cody Clemens, I'd rather roll with that than have Whit Merrifield around.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
John.
likewise. I didn't think of that actually till you said it, John. Whit has been an overall minus.
Yeah, almost useless, John. Almost useless.
Yeah.
Without Pache, you don't win the third game against the Rangers.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
That was a big triple.
That was the big blow of the game. And, you know, he has among the highest exit velocities in average exit velocity of any player in baseball this year. He just doesn't have enough at bats to qualify for that. So he has been routinely hitting the ball hard. And I can envision some games. You know, Nick Castellanos hit a home run here on Thursday, and you know he's going to be an everyday starter. But you know, right now I wouldn't mind seeing every once in a while throw out a Marsh, Rojas, Pache outfield out there, and see what take that out for a spin and see what it gives you.
Not opposed to that,
God forbid they sit Castellanos.
Especially right-handed starters with wicked sliders, because we know that means that Casty's going to be waving.
Oh.
Yeah. And I would even do it against some lefties when you need to give Castellanos a blow. Just, you know, I think that could be a fun, certainly that would be a plus defensive outfield. And the way Pache is hitting, I don't know that you lose a whole lot offensively.
True. Yeah.
The bullpen has been pretty damn good, especially Matt Strahm, but I can't shake the feeling that they still need another dependable arm. I know it's really early to get there.
Prognosticate.
But what's the trade deadline move for this team? Is it another dependable arm for the pen, you think?
You know, I think so. I think they probably could use another right-handed arm. Sir Anthony Dominguez, I think, has been coming around as of late. That's been encouraging to see, but I don't think you can trust him in a big spot late in a game, at least not right now. He's got to earn that. He's got to earn that back a little bit, but I'm not closing the door on him being that guy again this year. And I like Orion Kerkering. I like what he's given you. I want to see a little bit more from him before I fully trust him in the 8th or 9th inning of a 1 or a 2-run game, especially as the season goes along. Jeff Hoffman is obviously a stud, and I think I'm kind of surprised that he's repeating his performance from last year. I was a little bit worried that he would be a step back guy. Absolutely. So I feel like you could probably use another right-handed reliever. I don't know that it has to be Oakland's Mason Miller, who sounds like he's on the trade block. And for what the Phillies would have to give up to get him, I don't think anybody would be comfortable with. That being said, he's a phenomenal talent. And that would be, I can't imagine adding him to this bullpen that already has a ton of hard throwers in it. But I mean, I think you have to give up Aiden Miller. You have to give up, somebody like that. And nobody's doing that. And nobody's doing that. So I think we need to wait and see which teams, especially some of these teams that are like 3-4 games under 500 right now, see how the next month goes. And then you start to look at plucking some right-handed relievers off of their rosters and see what gets you.
On to the Birds now, John.
Oh, boy.
Off-season has been exciting. The draft was probably more than most of us expected to see in terms of the result. So, fast forward now, starting opening day at cornerback. Proceed.
That's a great question, because it all centers around, is James Bradbury going to be back, right? Is that your way of asking me, is James Bradbury's coming back? I feel like that is.
Dancing around. I know he didn't make the voluntary OTAs. He was ghost, right?
Yeah, and that's fine because he's a veteran. There's some other guys who didn't make it. I'm not reading too much into that, really. He's under contract. It's not like there's a contract dispute. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, James Bradbury can sit home for the offseason and come to training camp, and that's fine.
Yeah.
He was awful last year.
I know.
Awful.
But I'm reluctant to just toss him aside until I see what he looks like in training camp, because he's a guy who has historically been bad year, good year, bad year, good year. Like he kind of alternates some of these. And with Vic Fangio there as the defensive coordinator, I still don't know the damage that was wrought by the guys that they brought in last year, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball in terms of coaching. So I'm going to right now, I say the odds are probably better than not that Bradbury and Slay are the team's starting cornerbacks. And that, the rookies kind of are playing backup and slot corner, and Kenyon Mitchell's probably, like the third cornerback on the outside. So giving those guys a blow, certainly he probably plays 20-25% of the snaps in his rookie year, and that's okay. That's okay. Like if Bradbury's given you something this year and you see he looks good in training camp, looks a little bit rejuvenated, a little bit revitalized, that's only a good thing. I don't think anyone should be looking to push Bradbury out the door just yet. I'm willing to let that play out a little bit, and I think at the moment, I'll say Slay and Bradbury are your starters.
Yeah, that's reasonable. The guy was all pro a couple years ago. And
now they lose it fast sometimes, and that's I fully admit that. But at the moment, I'm not convinced that he's lost it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Wow. I think a lot of it is also going to hinge on what they actually see in extended preseason play from some of these rookies, too. Although that's preseason, it's vanilla. You got to take that with a grain of salt. We know, flipping to the other side, that the offense probably has higher expectations than the defense, and it should, with the guys you have on the outside, adding Saquon. But for me, the key is, are we going to get more of a 2022 Jalen or a 2023 Jalen or somewhere in the middle of that? What do you think we're going to get from Jalen?
I honestly think we're going to get more of the 2022 Jalen, and here's why. I think the reason he struggled last year was the fact that if you remember after the Super Bowl, he had a shorter offseason, obviously, because they played further into the season. And then he was negotiating a new contract, and he had more commitments on his time than he had ever had before. Remember, he was everywhere last offseason. You couldn't turn around without – Jalen Hurts was probably at your kid's birthday party. I mean, that's how ubiquitous he was last year after that, because he emerged as a mega superstar quarterback. There were more demands on his time, and I don't think he was able to prepare for the upcoming season the way he had in previous seasons. I think there was distractions, and I don't think it was anything nefarious. I don't think it was like a superstar mentality, like I don't need to do the work. I just think he didn't really maybe even know how to handle all of the different things around him, and I think that probably impacted his ability to prepare both physically, which is why maybe we didn't see the explosiveness from him last year. Maybe it caused some kind of discomfort in his knees or his legs. We never heard any kind of official injury issue with him or surgery this offseason. So I don't think it was a major injury or anything. And then I think just mentally, I don't think he was able to prepare himself mentally for the season like he had in previous seasons. And I don't think we can also underestimate how bad the coaching was. I think the coaching certainly, it does sound like was not helping him in any way. So I think Kellen Moore being there, I think having a full offseason where he can devote himself to nothing but preparing for this season will enable him to play much more like what we saw in 2022 than in 2023.
Yeah, coming off a Super Bowl, I mean, that's a lot happening.
Yeah.
You have the offseason really is not yours when you think about it in a lot of respects. That's a very good point.
Yeah. OTA's underway. Now, we know they're in shorts and sneakers, so you can't really have an accurate eye on people. But heading into training camp, aside from the first two picks in the draft, the corners, and really that position in general, who do you have your eye on this training camp?
I want to see how Cam Jurgens and Tyler Steen look on the offensive line. Yeah. That's probably number one. I want to see what that transition is going to look like. And then I want to see who else they bring in at wide receiver, and I want to see who's going to be their number three, because I don't see an obvious number three on this team right now. Paris Campbell, I think, was a popular guy yesterday in OTAs, but I don't know that he is the guy to replace Quez Watkins, and frankly, it shouldn't be that hard to replace Quez Watkins. No. But right now,
does John Ross make this team ultimately? I know they just signed him, but
I think it's. I think it's more probably just a body to have in there, but who knows? Yeah. You know, you never know. But it's probably just a body to have in there. And there are some free agents out there, like Hunter Renfrow is still out there.
I like him.
Is still out there. There's a bunch of guys with some injury concerns that are still hanging out there that their prices might come down as you get closer to training camp, and they're looking just to sign a 1-year cheap deal someplace. Wouldn't it all surprise me if the Phillies bring somebody in like that, a la Julio Jones last year, and maybe do it a little bit earlier in the process rather than later in the season. So I think they're going to upgrade there, but I do kind of want to see Anias Smith, right? Anias Smith, I'm saying that, right?
Yeah, you got it.
The young guy that they drafted could, I think, be an exciting little slot corner guy. So I want to see how those couple of positions shake out here during the course of the offseason and training camp when things break.
On the vet line with John Stolnis, writer for Bleeding Green, and of course for the Good Phight. Great Phil's articles. John, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Before we let you go, do the Phillies break their franchise record of 102 wins this season?
Oh boy!
Oh, I do think so. Yes, they've put themselves in the position that they don't need to do a whole lot more than play like 5 or 10 games over 500 to get there. Right. Seriously, like if they go 500, they're already in the low 90s for the rest of the year.
Exactly. So, and the 0-1 Mariners won 116, I think, and the 98 Yankees 114, something like that. They were on a similar pace. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Remarkable stuff. John, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, and we're looking forward to the Phils going back to the World Series.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, the Birds coming out and starting off in South America. Are you making the trip to Brazil?
Sadly, no. I don't. I'm not going to be doing that. But I will certainly be streaming it off of some friend of mine's Peacock subscription.
Very good. I'll have to
do
the same thing. I'm not giving those people no money.
Right.
That's right. Exactly.
All right, John. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
That's John Stolnis. And, hey, look, we're going to go back-to-back here. We're going to hit the vet line right away.
We sure are.
With our boy, Fox 29's own, Jason Martinez. Next.
Vet alumni. And now, it's the Vet Line.
Why don't you answer your phone?
Joined now on the vet line once again by our guy, Jason Martinez.
A man who needs no introduction.
Fox 29 news anchor and fantastic sports show host, of course. Jay, thanks for joining us again.
News and sports. I mean, I'm like the Shohei Ohtani of Philadelphia media.
You sure are, man. And Shohei is quite a talent.
Like that college pitcher. Like that college pitcher who pitches with both arms. You see that guy?
Right. I'll just keep telling myself that.
We're fine with it. Because the Phils are on a record pace. They haven't done this ever in their franchise history. What do you have to say about the Phillies?
You know, every night we ask ourselves this on the Fantastic Sports Show.
Yes.
We find other ways to say how great the Phillies are. And I'm starting to get scared, guys. They're so good, it's scary.
I hear you.
It's just not supposed to be this easy. It's not supposed to be this, seemingly where you're having 20, like for example, Edmundo Sosa and Christian Pache, when the 25th and 26th men on the roster are doing incredible things to help you win. Magical things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, look, when you sweep the world champs who came in at 500, desperate for a win just to stay in the West race because the Mariners are winning games, and you still sweep them, that tells you about the character of this squad. I mean, like you mentioned, Sosa, you have Cody Clemens stepping in.
Yeah.
When Trey comes back, what do you do at the top of the lineup? We
Yeah.
asked John Stolnis this. We want to get your opinion.
Okay, I have an outside-the-box opinion that no one's going to like, but here it is. Okay, hit Yohan Rojas, put Trey Turner in center, put Cody Clemens at second, and let Stott play short.
Wow,
that's my outside the box. Now that's never going to happen.
Wow,
because
I like it, though.
You don't sign Trey Turner to that massive long-term deal and make him play center. Although he's fast, he could do it. I don't love his defense at short. I like it. I don't love it.
Yeah,
I think
me too,
Stott's slightly better defensively.
Oh, yeah, he is.
I would, and again, this is more about getting Cody Clemens every day at bats. Now, we've seen baseball. We've seen guys get really good starts, and then the league catches up to them, and suddenly, Clemens is mortal, and that's going to happen. I like his approach at the plate. I like the guy a lot. Another left-handed bat.
Me too.
But ask me in July, and maybe things can change. But he's been one of the unsung heroes of the team too.
Yeah, big time. And you just mentioned it being kind of scary, right? So let me ask you this then. Here we are, May 23rd, 24th. You got a 6-game lead over the Atlanta Braves. Do you think that the Braves actually make a push and get within 2 to 3 at some point in the season?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I'm the other way. I think there's a chance the Braves miss the playoffs, and I'm not kidding.
Whoa!
I
okay.
think there's
wow.
Listen, they won today 3-0, but I think there's a chance without Strike. Man, I don't think they're the same team.
Strider,
I know it's early,
wow.
but if for example the Padres catch fire, for a wild card, Milwaukee catches fire, the Cubs, there's a chance that they're battling for a wild card spot in the end. And, that scares me too, because now you got a Braves team that has to battle for a wild card team, and you don't want to play. It would be like a rover. We're the NL East champs, and now we got to play this scrappy Braves team that just barely made the playoffs. I don't want that matchup either, but I just think there's a chance with that Strider injury. I don't think Matt Olson's going to have the kind of year he's been having.
No.
They've got injuries. I don't think they're as deep as we thought. On paper, I think the Phillies are just far and above better than the Braves.
Yeah, and we already know what happened the last two postseasons, but that kind of scares me too. It's
That
hard. It's
scares
hard to
me.
beat a team 3 straight postseasons.
It does. This whole you mentioned the word scary, right? And when as soon as you said that word, start speaking my language because I just have to know what we're seeing, right? What we're all witnessing right now. Do you believe it's for real? Like for real, Jay?
Tek, I am just like you. I'm very negative, and I'll tell you what. I'm negative because we've all been hurt before, right?
Yes.
You're hurt by an ex-girlfriend. I'm not going to let her hurt me again.
Right.
Having said that,
boy.
the reason I believe in this Phillies team is because they're winning in different ways.
Yeah.
They're winning with small ball. They're winning with different players stepping up at the right time. For example, if this was like Bryce hitting a 3-run homer every game and one or two players keeps hitting home runs, Schwarber, those are things you can't sustain. But when you're getting production from a new player every day, and it's just kind of circulating around and just different guys are stepping up, that is sustainable. You're not depending on a big hit. You're down. Everybody is doing just enough.
Yeah.
And, I'm not going to buy into the whole they're not playing anybody good.
No.
The National League is top heavy. There's only like 3 good teams. You play who you play.
Yeah, it's baseball. It's not football.
If they play Atlanta and they play the Dodgers and they get crushed against those two teams, I won't feel good about it. But ask me then. I might have some negative things to say. As long as everybody stays healthy, I think give Bryce some days off. Turner, Turner's already ahead of schedule, I'm hearing.
Yeah, he is.
I feel good about these guys. And by the way, I was in spring training. I saw these guys in the clubhouse. The chemistry is there. The chemistry is real.
Yeah,
it is real.
They love each other. It's like it truly is like a family pH.
It reminds me not of the beloved 93 team, but more of like the 08 to 011 kind of clubhouse where the guys are. But
I think 93 that's a good comp. 93.
Really, you think so?
Yeah, it's dynamic.
It's dynamic. These guys are like more. These guys are even more connected than the team that won in 08. I feel like they're just more. There's something about them. The way Marsh and Stott and Bohm come out after every game, no matter who's talking to McCarthy and Crookway, they pour water on him. It's like a certain thing that I don't remember seeing in the way I'm seeing it right now. So
it's the perfect mix of like maturity, chemistry, talent, youth, experience. I've never seen a mix this well distributed where you have, and by the way, their failure of the last couple of years only helps this year.
You're right.
Big time.
And I think this is an all-time Philadelphia team that we're watching right now. Even more beloved than the 08 team that won it all. That 93 team, for those who are old enough, Philadelphia loved that team because they were Philadelphia, right? You had the mullets, you had guys who were down to earth, guys who were blue collar, lunch pail guys who came to the field.
Loved it.
And I don't know that the 08 team was that identity, and that's okay. But this team, I feel like there's such an identity that we're Bryce being the captain embraced the crowd last year, and I just think this is a beloved team. But
now he's
we
helping
do want to
kids with
see him get it done.
With the prom.
And you talked to him on the Fantastic Sports Show? That kid.
We called this kid from Jersey and said, "Hey, how did you get Bryce to do a promposal?" And he goes, "Well, I knocked on his door."
Remarkable.
So apparently he lives near Bryce. Knocked on Bryce's door, and instead of Bryce saying, "Get out of here, kid," he said, "All right, well, let's do it right now.
Let's go get this. Let's go get this broad. Let's go get this broad."
I find that to be unbelievable and unlike anything I've ever seen in professional sports. I've never seen that.
Yeah, I mean,
not in this town,
that
at least.
speaks to what Jay's saying about just the vibe of his squad.
I will say this, right? You said that we're negative, right? And I think I'm trying to...
You're getting better.
I'm trying to ride and live in this, right? But my skepticism has... It makes it hard for me to fully appreciate exactly what is happening. It's like it's almost like the light is... It's bright, but it's like dimmer.
You have a Philadelphia complex.
Yes, my light is dimmer than everybody else's right now just because of this skepticism. Like, is this for real? The fact that I'm asking that, it instantly makes it so that I'm not completely riding like everybody else.
It's like therapy for you.
I guess. It's just I've been burned so many times that I see what's going on, and I just struggle to fully believe, is this real? Are we actually witnessing this? And is this going to be sustained?
I think
Ask yourself this. Who on the Phillies is playing out of their minds, overachieving? They can't sustain this level of play. And I can only think of one player, and that's Ranger. Now, I'll take half of what Ranger's doing right now and be happy with it. You know, his ERA is like what, 1-2, 10-0 or something like that.
It's crazy.
Okay, that's so fine. I'll take a 2-4, 10 and 12-4 Ranger. Like I just think besides him, I don't think anybody is playing out of their minds, way above their skis. I don't think. Matter of fact, I would say Schwarber and Bryce are a little below where they could be.
You're not wrong.
Bowman's had a good start, but he's kind of cooled off a little bit.
Yes.
Turner's been hurt. So JT's right about what we expect. I don't think anybody. So when it comes to like what can we project for the rest of the year, I think we can project a lot of the same.
And I'm looking at like the totals, like they're number one in everything. Number one in team ERA. Number one
in run scores.
Bohm leads the league. He cooled off, and he leads the league in RBI.
It's just crazy.
And
he's still hitting the ball hard. That third game against the Rangers, he hit the ball hard almost every time he's up. Just, unlucky almost.
It's just hard to believe that this is happening with this team.
You better start to believe it, Tek, because here we are, and it's only May 24th. We got a 6-game lead.
Just like the last 2 games. I expected the Braves to beat the Cubs twice. I expect the Braves to win every game we win. Every time we win, I expect them to win too.
So on to a squad now, Jay, that there's a little more questions around. The Birds.
Oh, yeah.
What have you heard so far about this rookie class from your colleagues?
Colleagues say that it was a hell of a draft for Howie, maybe the best draft Howie's ever had. And I feel like that's true as well, because I feel like he learned a lot over how many years has he been drafting players?
At least a decade, yeah.
Yeah. And just, he's made a few mistakes, and I think he learned a lot. I think it was a very, he waited for the draft to come to him. And so, I think we were all surprised that some of the players were available. I still think we can't get too high. Quinyon Mitchell and DeJean are going to be Pro Bowlers right away. I think we need to calm down.
Agreed.
I do like that he addressed the defense quite heavily. But here's what I will say about my biggest concerns about the Birds this year are the trenches. Offensive line is not automatic. People keep saying, "Hey, Saquon's going to be great because he has a great offensive line." I don't know yet.
Yeah,
we don't know what Cam Jurgens is going to be.
It's a huge question.
What about if Lane Johnson gets hurt again? Because that happens. It seems to happen every year. He has to take a few games off. Now, I do think there's a high upside. Now, the defensive line, we have no idea how good they're going to be. And the defense is going to live and die with that defensive line. Josh Sweat has moments where he looks like a Pro Bowl, and other moments like, where is he? He's disappeared. This is a make or break year for Jordan Davis. I think we'll see what happens with the guy they brought over from the Jets. And we're going to miss Hassan. We're going to miss Hassan Reddick, but that didn't work out. We have, and of course, it's all going to be whether Vic Fangio can press the right buttons, bring in the right rotations, and just call the right plays. And I think what we're also going to see is a major training camp of just hard work. I don't know what they were doing last year, but these guys took it easy after losing the Super Bowl, and you had some coordinators who didn't really have a clue. But they still went 11-1 or whatever it was
at one point. Yeah.
So you can't say they weren't prepared. They came out and went 11-1. I just still don't know what. Hey, Tek, are you concerned about Jalen Hurts? Because I am.
Yeah, I absolutely. If I have to point to a few different question marks, Jalen Hurts is at the top of my question mark list. I don't know what I'm going to see.
Because it's been Jekyll and Hyde, really.
Yeah, I mean, are we going to see the MVP guy? Are we going to see the collapse guy? I don't know.
Oh, my God.
I just don't know.
I think we're going to see, honestly, everyone wants to say, hey, we're going to see 2022. I don't think it's going to be as bad as 2023, so I truly think it's going to be slightly above average, which would be good, because last year was kind of average overall.
This is an interesting stat that really is eyebrow-raising that they have to correct this year. In the middle of the football field, Jalen Hurts' QBR is 8.
Yeah, they didn't really go there much. You got to use guys like Dallas Goedert. You got to go over the middle with some of these young studs you got.
And running backs. You got to use running backs in the screen game correctly.
Well, Kellen Moore is good at that. So, yeah, Jay, where are you at with Kellen Moore? What are your expectations for his system with these pieces?
Better than Brian Johnson. That's my expectation.
It's got
to be.
But let's remember, I mean, he left it. I don't know if he got fired from the Chargers, but it certainly, they didn't kill it yet last year. I'm cautiously optimistic. He's got an insane roster of talent.
Yeah.
Now, can he I think we're going to see a whole new Jalen Hurts. I don't know if the RPO is going to be the game anymore. Maybe he's under center. Maybe he's, there's a different, I think we're going to see a whole new look. And I think that's good. I think Jalen Hurts is ready to graduate to a new system that works for him. I think the league caught up to the RPO, perhaps.
Yes. Yep.
Big time. So, here's another question. Who's the third receiver on this team?
Well, that's a big question mark.
I wish, and that's one reason I wish Bill Belichick was the head coach, because Britton Covey would be in the slot.
He sure would
and then
be.
he'd run in those slants and he'd become Edelman or something.
Or the Welker.
Yeah, Wackler or whatever.
Wow, I hadn't even considered Covey.
Well, you got that Anais Smith kid out of A&M, who I really like.
I'll be honest, Jay, I don't know if Britton Covey makes this team.
Well, Anais Smith is a legitimate punt returner.
Wow, I mean, he had a pretty good year last year.
He did. I mean, but they drafted 2 return guys.
I know.
The other kid, right, from Florida State.
Well, DeJean and Smith.
That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean,
I like a healthy competition, though. Maybe that's what camp's all about. And
you're right about that.
Sometimes with a return man, because there's not a lot of returns, it's kind of a lot of fair catches, and just don't drop the ball. Like how many times have the ball's in the air, like, do not muff this punt.
I know, man. It goes through my head every time. No, he didn't. He caught almost everything.
He had a clean year. Yep.
Yeah. That's key. You got to possess the ball.
Yes.
Possess the ball. Do not drop the ball.
It's the number one rule of the return man.
Jay, before we let you go, how many wins for the Phillies? Over or under 102?
I'm going to go under because I'm negative.
Okay. All right. So you think they come back down to earth a little bit. All right. Very interesting.
I agree.
They're winning 109.
I'm going to go 98.
Wow.
I'm going to go, which is still above. Still, it's good enough to win the division and still above what a lot of people predicted.
Yeah, I adjusted from 93 to 97, and I think I'm right there. I think I'm at about 98, maybe 99 now. I'm not quite at 100
I'm at 109, but we'll see what happens, fellas.
Wow. Come on, Prem.
Shattering the record.
Shattering.
Tek, the key to being negative is you get pleasantly surprised if something bad doesn't happen.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
Story of his life since we started this show.
I predicted perfectly that Sixers-Knicks series. I knew that it was going to be Knicks at 6. I said it.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other story. That's a disaster. Is what that is.
Oh my gosh!
They don't even deserve our breath.
No, but here's what's going to happen. They're Maury's going to have a good draft, make some trades, bring in a star, and we're all going to be back buying in again.
I know.
That's what's going to happen.
I know. You're not wrong. For our listeners, make sure you tune into Fox 29 every weeknight, 11:30 p.m. for the Fantastic Sports Show.
Yes.
Always exciting guests.
Shout out to Breland Moore.
Shout out to Breland and also Tom over there at the station.
Yeah.
And we appreciate it, Jay. We'll catch up with you real soon.
It's time to get fantastic.
It sure is, man. Every day.
See you guys.
Need a better betting app? You need Rhythm.
Rhythm makes it easy to find AI-backed picks and player props for every single NFL, NBA, and game. You can build custom sports betting models or have AI build them for you and start getting recommended bets, score predictions, and more that will help you become a better bettor. Download Rhythm now and start getting free picks daily. Rhythm is the place for data-backed props and picks. RITHMM.
Rhythm is a proud partner of the Vet Alumni Podcast. Have a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. It's time for Prem's Picks.
These games are a blowout, a human lock. You can bet your children's unborn children on these games.
Prem's Picks, and I think we're back to 500. Is that what's going on?
Back down to earth. A 1-2 week puts my mark at 6-6. It's
All
okay
right.
though, Tech. You know what though? Because I'm kind of like the python in the grass, just waiting for his prey, just waiting to strike.
That's
and
right.
Get hot.
That's
And
right.
First, before we get to that, we got our Bet Rhythm Pick of the Week.
Yes, sir.
We're going Western Conference Finals. What a great
Oh, boy.
series. An exciting series. You know, you got likable players on both sides of the floor. Luka Doncic, over 2.5 threes. Feels like a lock to me. And Bet Rhythm says the same thing. Take it. Luka, I think he hits 4 threes in Game 2 because he reminds me of a championship caliber player that hasn't won a ring yet, is what he reminds me of. And I think that the Mavs are going to win the series. Even though I want the T-Wolves to win the series, my heart wants to see Minnesota T-Wolves in the finals.
I kind of do too, even though I'm not a Karl Anthony Towns guy at all.
No,
but
me
I love
neither.
Anthony Edwards.
I don't think Luka and Kyrie are going to let it happen, though. I think that they win the West. And Luka, over 2.5 threes, your Bet Rhythm Pick of the Week. Lock it in.
Lock it in. And speaking of the locks, let's get to them.
All right, Tech. For some reason, I don't know why this number is so low. The over in the White Sox-Orioles game is only 8 runs. The White Sox are horrible.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But
horrendous.
they're still going to score some runs.
A few.
A few, right? The Orioles are kind of like a machine similar to what the Phils are in some respects. They're really, really a good club.
Yeah.
They didn't get swept, or they hadn't been swept in over a whole season almost.
Yeah.
And they just wrapped up a sweep. Anyhow, over 8 runs, you got the White Sox and the Orioles. It just feels like such a lock to me, Tech. I think you got to take that over 8. The Orioles score a lot of runs. The White Sox allow a lot of runs. The White Sox pitcher has a 5.48 ERA, and Corbin Burns for the O's has a 2.56, but he's also lost 2 games in horrible fashion, too.
Yeah.
The White Sox are like sneaky bad, where they could still score some runs.
Yeah.
I think that there's 10 or more runs combined in this one.
There it is.
I think that the O's win like 9-4, 9-3, something like that. Take that. Orioles at White Sox in Chicago, over 8 runs, lock.
Lock.
All right, that's our only over pick of the week, Tech. We're going Dodgers at Reds. The Reds are scrappy. We know they're scrappy. We've seen the Phils split a series with them. Actually, the last series that, that was right after the last series they lost, which was against the Braves. They split with the Reds. I think that the Reds, unfortunately, lose to the Dodgers in Cincinnati. Take the Dodgers run line. It's -1.5 like run lines usually are.
Yeah.
Dodgers are just a superior club. Even though the Reds are scrappy, I think it's a safe pick. You know, you have Graham Ashcroft going for the Reds with his 4.25 and James Paxton with his 2.84 and his 5-0 record going for the Dodgers in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Historically, the Dodgers tend to play the Reds pretty well in Cincinnati. Take that run line, -1.5, Dodgers over Reds, lock. Lock! Lastly, Tech, we're going with an interleague game that's very intriguing to me. The Seattle Mariners are a very good baseball club.
Yeah.
And they're going to Washington to play the Nationals at Nationals Park. You know, it's an intriguing game because the Nationals are actually a little better than I think people realize. Mackenzie Gore is not a horrible pitcher. He's going for the Nationals in this one. He has a 3.30 ERA. But George Kirby has also been very good for the Mariners, 3.99, 54 strikeouts. Both these pitchers, actually, Tech, you'll be interested to know, both have struck out 54 hitters this year.
Wow.
So you have a matchup of very comparable pitchers. What that tells me is the better team wins in a matchup like that.
Yeah.
So give me the Mariners money line at Nationals Park as 6:45 first pitch in D.C. Lock.
Lock.
Let's recap real quick, Tech. We got the Orioles going to Chicago to play the White Sox, over 8 runs.
Lock.
We have the Dodgers going to Cincinnati to play the Reds, -1.5. Take that.
Lock.
And lastly, the Seattle Mariners, fresh off some W's, going to Washington to play the Nats, getting the win.
Lock.
This has been Prem's MLB Picks.
And with that, we will see you next week.
Vet Alumni.